The wind howled through the dense pine forest, carrying sharp crystals of ice that stung against the wooden cabin's weathered exterior. Inside, Jay Park sat quietly, his hands wrapped around a steaming mug of green tea, listening to the storm's distant whispers. Jay was not a young man anymore. At 56, he had seen enough of the world to know that unexpected things could happen at any moment. His years as a research physicist had taught him to be patient, observant, and always ready for surprises. The cabin creaked and settled, its wooden bones remembering decades of silent nights. Outside, the temperature continued to drop, transforming the landscape into a frozen canvas of white and gray. Jay's cabin stood alone, miles away from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but wilderness and the occasional deer trail. When the first knock came, it was so soft that Jay thought it might be a branch brushing against the window. But then it came again, deliberate, urgent, almost desperate. 3 precise knocks that seemed to break through the storm's continuous murmur. Jay set down his tea. His hand instinctively moved toward the small hunting rifle he kept near his reading chair. Years of solitude had made him cautious but not fearful. He approached the wooden door, each step calculated and measured. The knocking continued, more insistent now. Something about the rhythm felt different, not human yet not entirely alien. Jay's scientific mind began processing possibilities even as his hand reached for the door handle. When he opened the door, the cold rushed in like a living thing, bringing with it a figure that seemed both fragile and extraordinary. A woman stood before him, but not a woman as he understood human women. Her skin had a faint iridescent quality, almost like mother of pearl, and her eyes reflected colors that seemed to shift with each passing second. She was injured. A dark liquid, not quite blood but something else entirely, stained her strange metallic clothing. Her breathing was labored, and she swayed slightly, fighting to remain standing. "Help me," she whispered in broken English, her accent unlike anything Jay had ever heard before. And then she collapsed. Jay didn't hesitate. Years of scientific training and a fundamental human instinct to protect overcame any potential fear or hesitation. He caught her before she could hit the wooden floor, surprised by how light she felt in his arms. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Up close, Jay could see intricate patterns on her skin, not tattoos but something more like living circuitry. Her features were humanoid but distinctly different. High cheekbones, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to change color with each breath, skin that shimmered with an inner light. He carried her to the worn leather couch near the fireplace, gently laying her down. The fire crackled, casting warm shadows across her unconscious form. Jay's mind raced with questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? And most importantly, why was she here? As if sensing his thoughts, the alien woman's eyes flickered open. They were not human eyes. They were pools of liquid metal, reflecting images and colors that seemed to tell stories without words. For a moment they looked at each other, a retired physicist and an injured alien, separated by unimaginable distances yet united in this single strange moment. "You are safe," Jay said softly, although he wasn't entirely sure who needed that reassurance more, her or himself. Outside, the storm continued, indifferent to the extraordinary encounter happening within the small, isolated cabin. Snow fell in thick, silent curtains covering tracks, erasing evidence, creating a world of pure, pristine white. Little did Jay know that this night would mark the beginning of an adventure that would change not just his life, but potentially the entire human understanding of the universe. As dawn broke, painting the snow-covered landscape in soft golden hues, the alien woman began to stir. Jay had spent the night watching her, brewing herbal tea and keeping the fire alive. Her breathing had become more regular, and the strange liquid that had stained her clothing had mostly dried. She opened her eyes slowly, scanning the unfamiliar room with a caution that spoke of recent trauma. Jay sat quietly in a wooden chair, nearby, waiting. He had learned long ago that patience was often the best first response. "Water," she said, her voice slightly clearer than the previous night. Jay handed her a glass. Her fingers, slender and with an extra joint he hadn't noticed before, wrapped carefully around the ceramic. She drank slowly, methodically, as if each sip required careful calculation. "My name is Hannah," she said finally. The name sounded almost human, yet carried a subtle, otherworldly resonance. Jay introduced himself, watching her carefully. Her injuries seemed to be healing at an impossible rate. Small cuts and bruises were already fading, leaving behind only faint silvery marks on her skin. Hannah began to speak. Her story emerged in fragments: a civilization destroyed, a research mission gone wrong, a desperate escape. The Zorn Collective, she explained, was a galactic empire that consumed civilizations like a machine consumes fuel. Her people were scientists, researchers who had discovered something the Zorn wanted to keep secret. "They hunt knowledge," Hannah said, her metallic eyes growing distant. "Not just information, but those who create it." Jay noticed a small device tucked into her clothing, something that looked like a cross between a data chip and a living organism. It pulsed with a soft blue light, almost like a heartbeat. "This contains everything," she whispered, touching the device. "Proof of their weakness, proof that they can be stopped." As the morning progressed, Hannah shared more. Her civilization had been advanced, not through military might, but through understanding. They were explorers, researchers who believed that knowledge was the ultimate power. The Zorn saw this as a threat. Jay brewed more tea. He listened. His scientific mind was processing every detail, understanding that this was more than just a strange encounter. This was potentially first contact with an entirely different kind of intelligence. The device Hannah carried was complex. It wasn't just a data storage unit. It seemed almost alive. Organic circuits that responded to touch, information that could reshape itself, knowledge that was fluid and adaptive. "The Zorn are rigid," Hannah explained. "They follow strict protocols. They cannot understand creativity. They cannot adapt." Her words hung in the air, carrying a deeper meaning. Jay understood what she was suggesting, that human unpredictability might be a weapon more powerful than any technology. Outside, the snow continued to fall. The cabin felt like a bubble removed from the normal world, a space where impossible conversations could happen, where an alien and a human could sit and share tea and talk about the fate of civilizations. Hannah's injuries continued to heal. Midday, she could move without pain. Her metallic skin seemed to absorb the warmth of the fireplace, changing subtle colors with each passing hour. "We must contact your people," she said suddenly. "The information I carry cannot be lost." Jay knew this would change everything. A simple knock on the door in the middle of a cold night had transformed his quiet retirement into something extraordinary. First contact. Potential galactic conflict. The possibility of saving not just one civilization but potentially many. He looked at Hannah. She looked back. Between them, unspoken but understood, was a connection that transcended language, biology, and the vast distances of space. The small device continued to pulse, a heartbeat of knowledge, a promise of resistance, a chance for hope. The old satellite phone crackled to life, breaking the cabin's silence. Jay's fingers moved carefully, dialing a number he hadn't used in years. Dr. Kim Lee answered on the third ring, her voice sharp and immediate. "This is not a social call," Jay said simply. Kim understood immediately. They had worked together decades ago in quantum research projects that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. Their collaboration had been legendary in scientific circles, two minds that could communicate complex ideas with minimal words. Hannah watched silently from the corner, her metallic skin absorbing the room's soft light. She held the data device close, understanding that every moment counted. Within 6 hours, 3 specialized vehicles arrived at the isolated mountain location. No markings, no official government logos. Just plain black SUVs that moved with practiced precision. Colonel David Roberts led the team. Ex-military intelligence, now working in advanced research programs, he represented a bridge between scientific exploration and strategic thinking. His eyes scanned Hana with professional curiosity, seeing not just an alien but a potential game changer. "Tell me everything," Robert said, his voice calm and direct. Hana projected information from her device, holographic displays that filled the cabin's small space. Complex mathematical equations, stellar navigation charts, and what looked like biological network diagrams danced in three-dimensional clarity. The team worked through the night. Kim analyzed the quantum mechanics of Hana's data. Roberts examined potential strategic implications. Jay translated and connected the complex pieces. What they discovered was extraordinary. The Zorn Collective wasn't just a military empire. They were a civilization built on absolute predictability. Their technology, their social structures, their entire existence relied on precise, predetermined patterns. They could not handle randomness. They could not adapt to unexpected behaviors. Humans, in contrast, were chaos incarnate. "We don't just think outside the box," Kim muttered, studying the projections. "We don't even recognize the box exists." Roberts began sketching preliminary strategies. Not traditional military plans, but something more fluid. Psychological warfare. Technological judo. Using the Zorn's rigidity against them. Hana explained how her people had been systematically eliminated precisely because they were too rational, too predictable. Humans would be different. Unpredictable. Capable of solutions that defied logical progression. By dawn, a plan started taking shape. Not an invasion, not a direct confrontation, but a calculated series of interventions designed to destabilize the Zorn's entire operational framework. "They won't understand us," Robert said, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. "And that will be their ultimate weakness." The team worked with a sense of urgency. The data Hana carried was more than information, it was a key. A potential salvation not just for her destroyed civilization, but for countless others facing the Zorn's methodical destruction. Jay looked out the window. The mountain landscape remained unchanged. Snow. Trees. Silence. But something fundamental had shifted. First contact wasn't about grand speeches or massive spaceships, it was about understanding. About seeing potential where others saw only threat. As morning light filled the cabin, 5 individuals from different backgrounds, a retired physicist, a quantum researcher, a military strategist, an alien researcher, and an extraterrestrial survivor, prepared to challenge a galactic empire. The revolution would not be fought with massive weapons. It would be fought with creativity, with the human capacity to surprise, to adapt, to transform the impossible into the inevitable. And it all started with a knock on a door during a cold winter night. The Zorn communication outpost looked like a perfect machine, geometric, symmetrical, designed with mathematical precision. Located on a barren moon orbiting a distant gas giant, it represented the Empire's technological superiority. Perfect, predictable, vulnerable. Jay's team was anything but traditional. 6 humans and Hana, equipped with technology that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. Their approach wasn't military, it was almost playful. Colonel Roberts had planned something unprecedented. Not destruction, disruption. The first phase involved sending unexpected signal patterns. Mathematically perfect, yet containing subtle irregularities that would confuse the Zorn's computational systems. Like introducing a virus into an extremely ordered system. Hana's device became their primary weapon. It could generate communication, frequencies that looked normal but carried hidden complexity. Each transmission was a puzzle, a challenge to the Zorn's rigid processing algorithms. Kim managed the technical aspects. Her fingers danced across specialized equipment, creating communication, packets that looked innocent but carried deep destabilizing potential. She was essentially creating digital Zen koans, messages that would make logical systems crash trying to understand them. Their first transmission arrived precisely at 0347 Galactic Standard Time. It looked like a routine maintenance communication, but embedded within were instructions that would slowly unravel the Zorn's communication network. Nothing exploded. No dramatic space battles occurred. just a slow, methodical breakdown of their most critical communication infrastructure. Zorn technicians would start noticing small inconsistencies, communication delays, slight routing errors, minimal things that would seem insignificant individually, but would compound rapidly. Roberts compared it to dropping a single pebble that starts an avalanche. Small action, massive consequence. Hannah watched, her metallic skin reflecting the complex holographic displays. She understood something fundamental. This wasn't about winning through force. This was about winning through intelligence. The human team worked with a strange combination of scientific precision and creative chaos. They weren't following traditional military strategies. They were essentially playing an incredibly complex game of psychological warfare. Each transmission was crafted like an artistic performance, mathematical, beautiful, destructive. Within 6 hours, the Zorn's communication network started showing significant disruptions. Not complete failure, something more insidious, confusion, uncertainty. Imagine a perfectly organized machine suddenly experiencing unpredictable glitches. Not total breakdown, just enough uncertainty to create doubt. The Zorn had never encountered an opponent who fought like this. Their entire civilization was built on predictability. Humans introduced randomness, creativity, the ability to transform a weakness into unexpected strength. By the operation's 12-hour mark, 3 critical Zorn communication relays had been indirectly compromised. No direct attack had occurred. Just a series of intelligent, carefully crafted digital interventions. Jay understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just a military operation. This was a statement. Humans were announcing their arrival on the galactic stage, not through violence, through intelligence. As the final transmission was sent, Roberts allowed himself a small smile. The Zorn would be analyzing these signals for months, maybe years, trying to understand, trying to predict. But humans weren't predictable, and that was their greatest weapon. Hannah looked at the team. For the first time since her arrival, she saw hope, not just for her destroyed civilization, but for the potential of collaborative intelligence. The communication outpost remained physically intact. No alarm sounded, no explosions occurred. Just a silent, fundamental transformation happening at the digital level. First contact, first strike, not with weapons, with understanding. The universe watched and waited. The Zorn response came swiftly, but not as anyone expected. Instead of a direct military attack, they launched a calculated assault designed to crush human communication and infrastructure. Massive energy signatures appeared near Earth's orbital zones, signaling a potentially devastating confrontation. Jay and his team had anticipated this. Their preparation wasn't just technological, it was psychological. Earth's defense systems looked traditional on the surface. Satellite networks, missile platforms, advanced radar tracking. But beneath that conventional exterior lay something entirely different. A defense strategy built on human unpredictability. Kim had designed a network of responsive AI systems that could adapt in milliseconds, not programmed responses, but learning, algorithms that could transform tactics faster than any rigid military system could comprehend. The first Zorn attack wave arrived with mathematical precision. Perfectly coordinated energy weapons targeted critical communication infrastructure. What would have destroyed any other civilization became something else entirely for humans. Each attack was met with a response that defied logical prediction. When the Zorn expected a direct counterattack, humans would redirect. When they anticipated resistance, humans would withdraw. When they prepared for confrontation, humans would negotiate. Hannah watched, her metallic skin reflecting the complex, holographic battle displays. She understood now why her civilization had fallen. They were too rational. Humans were beautifully, magnificently chaotic. Colonel Roberts managed the defense like a complex chess game, but with pieces that could change their own rules. Military strategy became performance art. Each movement contained multiple potential meanings. The Zorn fleet found themselves confronting an enemy that didn't follow any known combat protocols. Missile systems would activate, then suddenly redirect. Communication networks would collapse, then reconstruct themselves through unexpected pathways. Earth wasn't just defending, it was teaching. Jay's role became crucial. His scientific background allowed him to translate human creativity into strategic language. He saw the conflict not as a war, but as the most complex communication experiment in galactic history. Massive energy weapons that would have obliterated other civilizations became useless against human adaptability. The Zorn discovered something terrifying. Humans didn't just resist, they transformed resistance into an art form. By the conflict's third day, the Zorn fleet found themselves increasingly confused. Their perfect mathematical models collapsed against human randomness. Every predicted outcome became invalid within minutes. Satellite networks danced, defense systems transformed, communication channels rewrote themselves continuously. The battle wasn't about destruction. It was about demonstrating a fundamental truth. Rigid systems cannot defeat adaptive intelligence. Hana's device played a critical role, providing continuous real-time data that allowed humans to stay multiple steps ahead. Each transmission was a puzzle, each defensive move a potential philosophical statement about intelligence and adaptation. Earth's response wasn't just military, it was a message to the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something entirely unexpected. The Zorn fleet, designed for absolute precision, found themselves confronting an opponent that refused to be defined. Missiles would launch, then mysteriously redirect. Communication networks would collapse, then reconstruct through impossible pathways. By the conflict's conclusion, no major physical destruction had occurred, but something more significant had happened. The Zorn's perception of technological superiority had been fundamentally challenged. Jay understood this was more than a battle. This was first contact. This was humanity's announcement to the galaxy. As the final Zorn ships retreated, something remarkable happened. Other enslaved civilizations watching the conflict began to see possibility. If humans could resist the Zorn, perhaps they could too. Resistance wasn't just about fighting. It was about reimagining what was possible. The universe watched, and for the first time it saw humanity not as a potential threat, but as a profound, beautiful mystery.